Someone finally dared to sort of challenge Trump, and it was a MAGA Fox host, very interestingly. And Brian Kilmeade, has been separate from Trump lately, sort of expressing that it's a little bizarre that Trump has been out there blaming Zelensky for his country being invaded and will not say one negative thing about Putin. And then Brian Kilmeade got the chance to talk with Trump on radio. And I want to play this full back and forth for you eventually a little bit later in the few-minute clip I'm going to play. A clear and humiliating moment finally takes place where I think the absurdity of Trump's argument is exposed just by some simple questions from Brian Kilmeade. Here we go.
President, cover of every newspaper just about is your stance in Ukraine. I was looking up. I almost found no indications that you said anything bad about Zelensky up until the last few days. And it seems as though when he didn't take the mineral deal and was critical of you for having a delegation talk in Saudi Arabia with Russia, that was a turning point for you, correct?
I've been watching this man for years now. As his cities get demolished, as his people get killed, as his soldiers get decimated, where you have old men and young men. You have men that are too old to fight, right, men that are too young to fight. I've been watching this for years, and it's a war that shouldn't have started. I know because I was there and I had it. It didn't.
Now, I know Trump doesn't drink, but he sounds so drunk. It's not actually that, but he sounds so bizarre. I was those negotiations. Anyway, going forward,
would have never started if I won the election, which I did. It's a war that never ever would have started. So I've been watching for years, and I've been watching him negotiate with no cards. He has no cards, and you get sick of it. You just get sick of it.
You just get sick of it. You just get... I think I'm going to be sick.
And I've had it. And he then made a deal with us for rare earth and things. And who knows what rare earth is worth, but at least it's something. And who knows what it's worth. Who knows if they even have it. But we made a deal with...
What is rare? How rare is earth? There's a lot of right? What are we talking about?
The rare earth. And Secretary of Treasury, a very good guy, actually went there, and they couldn't even come close to getting a deal done. And frankly, I wish he didn't go there, waste all of his time like that. But they couldn't get close. They met.
Right.
And then when he wanted to get it closed, he was unable to meet him again. But so it was just a wasted trip, a dangerous trip.
All right, so before we get to the notable part, so far we've got nothing. I guess Trump's that whole thing was essentially a yes to Brian's question, which is you all of a sudden went from, while not pro-Ukraine in this conflict enough, you at least were more respectful in your rhetoric about Zelensky, and you would say you like him and we want to figure something out that would be good for him. And then you switched, and now you're not just too sympathetic to Putin, you're openly hostile towards Zelensky. You're openly hostile toward the leader of the country that's being invaded. You're making up lies about the money the United States has sent, about the characteristics of that money and that funding. You're making up lies about him being a dictator. You're making up lies about all of these things, peddling brazenly pro-Russian nonsense. What is that? And his response is, I guess, that yes, Brian, what caused me to change my rhetoric was that I got upset because Zelensky dared to say, hey, I think I should be a part of the negotiations for the fate of my country. But sorry, I know we have more to listen to, but by the way, the moment that is being referenced was when Zelensky went, I have not been invited, and that's strange. That was it. I haven't been invited to the negotiation. It wasn't Trump's terrible. It wasn't any of the justifiable things he could have said. And then the only other thing I guess Trump's upset about is that Zelensky rejected Trump's deal, demanding just a ungodly amount of money from Ukraine. Of course he would refuse that. And then once Trump started rambling, as you're about to hear more of, about the lies that are aligned with Putin, Zelensky said, I think he might be stuck in a disinformation bubble. That's it. All right, we're getting to the part where Brian corners him.
Too. I didn't like it that he was doing it.
By the way, if you appreciate the show, please do click the subscribe button. And then also, if you want to go a step further, you can click the join button below.
Because, he's a good man. I didn't want him to put himself under danger because I had a feeling something like that would happen. But look what you have. You have a man who's led a country that had the most beautiful cities that they demolished, had the most beautiful domes. Those domes are the most beautiful
in the world. But that's Russia's fault, though, Mr. President. Russia
They're all demolished, 1,000-year-old domes. And everything's demolished. I mean, it's like a demolition site, though. It's sort of like Gaza. In fact, it's more, at least Gaza has a couple of buildings standing. I mean, this place, you take a look at the demolition of so many of those cities, and all those people are killed, never to come back again.
But Mr. President, that's that's Vladimir Putin's fault. Don't you agree?
I get tired of listening to it. I'll tell you what, I've seen it enough. And then he complains that he's not at a meeting that we're having with Saudi Arabia trying to intermediate a peace. Well, he's been at meetings for 3 years with with a president who didn't know what the hell he was doing. He's been in the meetings for 3 years and nothing got done. So I don't think he's very important to be at meetings, to be honest with you. He's been there for 3 years. He makes it very hard to make deals. But look what's happened to his country. It's been demolished.
But no, I hear you. But Mr. President, you know who's to blame for that. Don't you think it's Vladimir Putin that did the invasion unwarranted?
So now Trump's just shouting. Now he just started shouting over Brian. That's his only. This is how you know his argument is weak, impotent, flaccid. Sorry. Is that his only means of arguing it is just ignoring the question. No, wait, but the domes. Okay, we got it. But whose fault is that? Donald? Whose fault is it? And how do you think Biden should have gone about it? Because you never can articulate that. The best deterrent for Russian aggression is support for Ukraine. So Biden was doing the thing that was trying to protect the domes.
Who's to blame for that?
Don't you
think it's Vladimir Putin that did the invasion unwarranted, to try to take back land he had no right to? And don't you think fundamentally that's that? And if you could just get, and now both sides want to talk, it seems, so we should just get to that point?
They only want to talk because of me. If I wasn't involved, they wouldn't be talking to each other. And Russia would continue to, go through Ukraine, because they are going through, Brian. They've taken a lot of land. And Russia would continue the march through Ukraine. If it wasn't for me, they wouldn't be talking at all. I'm the only reason they're talking.
No, I think that everybody agrees with that.
No, I know. Oh my, I'm so sorry I had to embarrass you like that. I'm so sorry. Oh God, I'm sorry, Don. Why do they sound so nervous every time they dare to ask Trump an actual question? Hey, you call the dictator a great guy and the better guy the dictator. Why? What's that for? And then it's we know. You're so great. Otherwise, I promise. Stop. Calm down, Brian.
We have Macron coming to see you for France, and then Stormer for the UK this week to move forward.
Yeah, but they didn't do anything either. The war is going on. There's no meetings with Russia, no nothing.
Right.
They haven't done anything. And Macron's a friend of mine, and I've met with the prime minister, and he's a very nice guy, but nobody's done anything. And I've been watching this go on for years, and I'm doing it for one reason. I hate the killing. I hate to see those young people killed. They're not Americans. They're Russians and Ukrainians. I hate to see the killing.
all hate that. We all hate it. How do you prevent future Russian aggression, which comes with future bloodshed? How do you prevent the destabilization of Europe? How do you prevent the bloodshed across multiple countries? That's the question. But Trump has this sort of one-track mind, or if we're assuming more maliciousness, then he was wanting to see an advantageous outcome for Russia. And you hate to think the US president doesn't understand the importance of supporting and wanting the advantageous outcome to come for the democratic ally of ours, as opposed to the authoritarian regime that has shown us his willingness and his intention to continue the aggression. By the way, I don't have the clip on me here, but do I? Nope, I don't have it. But we've seen it in other segments, which is Putin talking about Trump lately. Picture you're a little kid, and on the same day, mommy gets you is it called a dump truck? A dump truck, right? Yeah, a truck, like one of those little toy truck, and ice cream, and takes you to Disney World, and other fun things. That's the vibe that Putin gives off whenever he talks about Trump, because he knows that just by saying Trump, you have such a massive personality. Just by saying you're so handsome, just by saying you're so strong, he can get Trump to do his bidding, knowingly or unknowingly. And Trump's embarrassing himself so much. I saw the National Review, I think it was, a conservative outlet, condemning it. The New York Post, was it? Yeah, another conservative outlet. And on the front, it was, "This is a dictator." And it was Putin. And you have the Wall Street Journal condemning. So we now have another Fox-associated person on the radio, Mark Levin, having to explain to Trump like he's a baby who's actually the person we're opposing here. Here's Mark Levin. Mark Levin of shouting about how much he loves Trump fame. Actually, before playing this, let me remind you, because you might not think this is an actual Trump loyalist. Oh, it is. This is how he acted whenever Trump got arrested.
Kooks do it. We need to look at Bush versus Gore. Why did the Supreme Court take that case from the Florida Supreme Court? We need to look at things like common law writs, which I know the audience don't understand, but a lot of lawyers do. Not writs of certiorari.
I don't understand it, but it sounds nice.
Based on statute, but common law writs based on judicial decisions. We need to give the Supreme Court the opportunity to fix this. Why? We cannot have local acting judges, Soros DAs, 15,000 district attorney's office, God knows how many state judges, destroying our federal election system, influencing how we elect the president of the United States. And if we have a pathway to bring it to the Supreme Court, even though it's rarely used.
Yeah, so that's Mark Levin shouting. I don't know who watches that. A lot of people. But why? I don't want to be shouted at like that.
Media who are in other positions and so forth. And if you know the full extent of their views, and if you know the actual situation with regard to Zelensky ordered martial law. That's what the Constitution there compelled. Zelensky hasn't called for an election. That's what the Constitution there compels. Now I'm waiting for the first free election for Vladimir Putin. I mean, this is almost comical in a sick way that
I'm so happy to hear him criticizing Trump on this, but I've been hearing this Putin. Is that the correct pronunciation? Putin. Putin.
Putin is demanding an election. Why is he demanding an election in Ukraine when he doesn't have free and real elections in his own country? And why does he get to call the shots when, in fact, he murders people who dare to challenge him? All the famous suicide jumpers. But worse than that, he throws them in prison, gives them 19-year sentences, they get sick. He sends hitmen, assassins into London, into Germany to kill anybody who opposes him. There's not a single independent media outlet left in the whole of Russia. He shuts them down. He kills journalists too. This is what we're dealing with. Again, old KGB, and not just KGB. He was in, like Flynn, with the Stasi in East Germany. So I don't know why there are people.
Can y'all imagine? When I have to cough, I'll just get Jaden to mute the mic. Sorry, y'all know I'm trying to make light of some of this, but it's so serious. But continuing making light. Can you imagine? It is so horrible what Trump is doing. Come on, Mark. But I do like what he's saying, and I agree. And my only question is, why does he not shout about this? Okay, he'll shout about Trump's legal woes, but this doesn't fire him up enough. But yeah, okay.
That not only oppose Zelensky, but seem to support Putin. It's bizarre. But that's not me. That's not you. That's not the men and women who have fought our wars, who fought in World War II or Vietnam or Korea, who fought in Iraq and fought in Afghanistan. This isn't them. These are a handful of pseudo-intellectuals funded by the likes of George Soros and Charles Koch.
All right, now we're taking a turn for the worse. I think he's saying, I don't know what he's saying, but he did play a long clip earlier of someone he respected criticizing Trump. And now I guess he's saying it's being weaponized. I don't know. I don't know what turn that just took. Whoa. But a lot of what he said there was correct. And it's disturbing him that Trump's siding with Putin. Also, one of the clips that he played, I didn't think we have enough time for, but was of, again, someone he respected pointing to the fact that Zelensky has a 57% approval rating when Trump says that he has he's just a pathological liar. He said that Zelensky, I think, had a 4%. That's a big gap. And notably, Zelensky's more popular than Trump. In Ukraine, Zelensky's more popular than Trump is in the United States. But apparently it's acceptable to call him names because he's not popular enough. What? 57% in politics is great. Way higher than Trump's approval rating. And he keeps bringing up this point that Levin was debunking about now he's peddling the Putin talking point of you should hold elections. That sounded really good. That was Putin. Thanks. And the reason is because Putin would try through his little mechanisms to get a Putin loyalist elected through legitimate or illegitimate means, right? And so he's saying you're a dictator if you don't do that. But under the Ukrainian law, during wartime when martial law has been enacted, and just logistically because of the lack of safety that holding elections would bring given Russia's assault, and again, their constitutional order demands something very different in such a time. But then Putin, he dares to levy that criticism when that guy has not had a legitimate election in a very long time. Okay? His elections are, you get dragged out and taken somewhere if you don't vote for him. Right? And Trump dares to criticize Ukraine for not doing something that they're not supposed to in this circumstance when Trump never criticizes Putin for that. Disgusting stuff. Share your thoughts in the comments. Support the show. Get the members only bonus show by clicking that join button below.